My name's Dave DeBow, founder of MoneyPartnerFormula.com, and this show is built for everyday real estate investors who are actively doing deals and looking to scale using other people's money. So if you're an active real estate investor and you want to get featured on this show to talk about your own real estate and capital raising experiences, then just go to daveinterviewsyou.com. Now let's get rolling with this episode, and remember to subscribe for daily interview content.
All right, guys, welcome to Property Profits Podcast. I'm your co-host, Bryce Kaminsky, filling in for Dave Dubow. And if you've ever wondered how one person turned probate hurdles and a career shift into a thriving real estate portfolio, my guest today, Alex Ford from Ajax, shares his unconventional yet successful investment strategies, from navigating probate without a lawyer to embracing private funds and RRSPs. Alex's journey is a true masterclass in adaptability. That's a tricky one. Alex, welcome to the show. Great to have you here.
Hi, thanks for having me. Glad to be here.
Yeah. So let's start at the beginning. You know, we were talking before the show about all the different things you're like connecting with and these different groups and stuff like that. But how did what planted the seed for you to get into real estate?
It's my wife.
Yeah.
Her family was big on real estate, and so she saw the value from her grandfather and her father. And we got our first property, moved in after we married, and then a year later, or a few years later, after she had our son, it was a townhouse, and she was afraid he was going to fall down the stairs and told us we're moving. I said, okay, no problem. Let's look for another house. She said, but we're keeping this place. And this was 2011, and I asked her, like, you think the banks are just giving money away? And if you're employed and can cover the expenses, they are.
They are.
Which was a surprise to us. So we aggressively paid down that mortgage, had a lot of room, moved into our now forever home. I don't know how long. And then a year later, with another baby on the way, she says, look, we're doing this again. I was super scared. I had a panic attack driving home from hockey after we closed, because now it's 3 mortgages. Like, what 3 mortgages? Hard enough to get one, but we did it, and we're doing it.
Well, that's what a lot of people don't quite, they're not quite sure if the bank's going to give them a mortgage, but these other people, they're going to work for us. They're going to work to pay those mortgages. And and you might have a bit of vacancy here and there, but at the end of the day, there's 2 strategies. People either move and sell and move and sell and move and sell, but then they're always just with the one house. And I think you guys are really tapped into it's almost like a house hacking. You're not so much living with other people, but you're not leaving anything behind. You acquire the property, and then you acquire another property, and then you acquire another property, which is, a great way to kickstart the wealth. So how many properties do you guys have now?
Well, currently we sit with our principal residents, total of 5.
Nice. And what area of the country are they?
So mostly Durham, and like we stopped after that last purchase in 2012 because I really didn't dedicate myself to it enough. But when my parents passed away, at least my mother, when she passed, the house came up, and we had told her before she passed through a conversation, we're kind of keeping this. And my brother said, like, do what you want. I don't care. I don't want to talk about this now. But when time came, we just knew real estate was a good investment. So why get rid of an asset and that was the start of generational wealth, with my mother not even realizing at the time. She just needed a place to live, and it was, more affordable than renting. So well, let's buy a house in 1976 or something. So
well, you've already had these other properties for a good 10 years now then.
Right. And with no effort, though, trying to get more after sort of 2012. But I was just scared, right? Just that fear, and everything seemed to be going fine. Of course, the downturn caused some struggles with, financing and paying the bills because things started to stretch with 2 kids. But again, you find the way to get through it. Didn't have to borrow, just self-sustained ourselves. And then after we closed that house, I still didn't even know the BRRRR method. So 2019, I just rented it. Eventually tenants left, and I was effectively working the BRRRR strategy, and I did it there through a general contractor. And over COVID, actually, we got another one in Waterloo where a family friend had passed away, and I inquired with the family. They offered a private sale, and we were able to close that, make it a duplex, and increase the value 300,000 in 1 year through COVID. Wow. Of course, that's a black swan, right?
Yeah, well, you definitely, we did see a good little bit of an appreciation bump as people suddenly had $2,000 a month extra income coming in through government benefits, and then the mortgage debt. If you're listening at home, you can go to the Government of Canada's consumer index, and you can find out what percentage of debt is mortgage debt. And you would be quite surprised to find out the amount of mortgage debt that was accumulated in that bump from 2020 to 2022. It's every dollar it seemed the government handed out went into mortgage debt. So it was good for people to get into properties. Interest rates were low. Some of those people with open variables might be hurting a little bit right now, but um, you must have some amount of equity across all these properties by now then.
Oh, we're close to tapped again. A little. I won't. A little. I should have locked in some rates. You just mentioned
Yeah.
the variable portion there. So we're struggling well to keep those expenses under
Have you
control. But
pulled money out of these properties over the years?
so again, the first one, yeah, to buy the
The
principal
next
residence we
one,
live
yeah.
in now, and then the investment property in Oshawa, same thing. And it just got harder and harder with documents required. You got to pay off this car, you got to pay off this
Mm-hmm.
furnace bill. That's it was great paying $200-300 a month, but the banks don't like it when you're trying to finance properties. So every time it just seemed to get harder and harder. But that's how we've done it. So we're stretched pretty thin now with where we are. Uh, but
Yeah.
I'm looking to starting to use other people's money, if you will, for either joint ventures possibly or um, debt partners with an interest payment.
Yeah, that is the way that typically people in your position continue to scale, because no matter how good you're doing, how bad you're doing, there's a point where the bank says, that's enough, Alex, that's enough. And then you have to start, bringing other people's money to the table, joint ventures and things like that. So what are you looking at these days as far as property? What's caught your eye?
Oh, I'm thinking out east is the way to go, just because of the affordability, and the rents are comparable
Hmm.
to 2015 Durham region rents, and
Yeah.
the house prices are upwards of say 300, 350 for even triplexes. And
Hmm.
they might be starter homes, need a little tender loving care, but that's going to be developing contacts there because you want reliable contractors.
Definitely. Got to build
That's your
that power
biggest,
team.
one of your
So have you
biggest hurdles.
started reaching out and building that power team yet?
I haven't. My sister-in-law has a property as she was teaching out in Nova Scotia.
Mm.
Sorry, Sackville, New Brunswick, but she's bought a property in Nova Scotia. So
Hmm.
kind of a leg up for us to look at venturing out in that way, be it Moncton or Halifax.
And she's still out there?
She's back now. She did her like professorship. I don't know what the
Okay.
schooling term is. I think it was her PhD actually.
Interesting.
So, but the property's there, and yeah, it's been good for her. So it was a duplex that both sides are rented now.
Hmm. Yeah. So, one thing that I would always say to people about building the power team is, um, find your realtor here, call your realtor that's here and say, do you know anyone out there? Get the connection there. And then once you get the connection out there, you say, do you know anyone who could be my lawyer? Do you know anyone who could be my contractor? And you can kind of spread through the referral network without, because it's really about, one thing I imagine you're thinking about is like, how do I trust these people so far away?
I've been I was dealing with property managers in Waterloo before, and the the service level and the contact was just abysmal. Like it
Hmm.
was, I think, 7 days before I found out there was an electrical outage in the bathroom. Now, all they were doing was messaging me because I was hiring my contractors to avoid their upcharges. But
Hmm.
it still took me a couple of days to find the electrician to get in there. Of course, resolved as soon as I could, but to not hear for 7 days, and I asked the management company, why is it taking so long? Oh, we're just backed up here. Well, that's
Hmm.
that's a system problem, and that's not my problem. But my tenants are suffering, and therefore, you know, not good things are going to happen for me if it continues. Or get like rental complaints to the landlord tenant board. I don't need that.
Yeah,
So
we don't need
I
that for
gave up
sure.
on them, and now it's managing myself. But I have the contractor I used for the various repairs on the upstairs portion there, and he's fairly reliable, gets in touch when I need to, and does whatever I ask in regards to cleaning gutters and mending fences. literally.
Nice, nice. So is the future in multifamily for you, like two duplexes and triplexes? Is that what you have your eye on right now?
I'd even love to go up to apartment buildings with the time on my hands lately,
Hmm.
for management wise. But again, it's that fear of the unknown. It's that uncomfortable feeling in your stomach that I've had so many times, and it's the feeling afterwards when that subsides because you've succeeded is so much better and worth it.
Yeah,
So
the
it's
delayed gratification they call it. So what are you doing to train these days and educate yourself? You'd mentioned that you were at an event recently or a mastermind. What was it that you said you
That
were
was
training?
actually the gentleman who runs it. I mean, he quotes the number. Nobody knows who he is, but in excess of 130 million assets under management currently through
Hmm.
JV partners. He's got into apartment buildings lately.
Hmm.
Um, and I took a course of his as well, acquiring apartment buildings and negotiating the deals. So um, education is key because you can know everything and you've got to do something with that knowledge though. And so really mindset is big, and I've heard so many successful people tell me what an advantage it is to think a certain way or change a phrase from a negative to a positive, as opposed to I can't find any deals, I'm going to find the best deal today.
Hmm.
So really, I'm not, I've never been a positive person. I'm not highly educated from a university perspective, so
Well,
it's
that's
a
the
big
beauty of
shift for
real
me.
estate. You don't really need to have that sort of education, but you do need to be a bit of a risk taker. And it looks like, you've become, you know, the main thing that I've seen of all the people that I've trained over the years into real estate, becoming comfortable with being uncomfortable, because it's always in scaling, especially. Um, it's like the lobster and outgrowing its shell. You got to like shed that shell to grow into the larger version of yourself. So it's the uncomfortable, and I would always say whatever makes you uncomfortable, just go right at that, because that's usually where the growth is. There's no real growth in the comfort zone. So um yeah, multifamily. When are you planning to really dig your teeth into something large now that you got that education? When are you going to plan to, like start deploying that education?
Again, on the spot, it's really a motivation aspect, and like as soon as possible would be great, but I've got to I got to get my head in the right space and stop procrastinating. I'm a huge procrastinator.
Yeah,
So this
there's
whole game comes along with organization and meeting timelines with taxes and whatnot. So
hmm. Hmm.
I've been suffering at times where I think I haven't read the book yet, but the Who Not How,
Hmm.
um, and get some of this stuff offloaded to really start my growth. But again, it's all mindset. It's doing, it's committing, and it's goal setting, which I've always been poor at self-analyzing when it came to job performance reviews. I just detested them. I'm doing my work. I'm doing what you asked me to, but the model behind those is the growth. You set targets, you meet those targets, you've succeeded, you move on to something else. And I preach it, but I just can't seem to wrap it. But I'm working on it.
Well, you might be suffering from the a little bit of imposter syndrome. A lot of people, when they start in real estate, when they're scaling, they're like, I'm not that guy, I'm not that good, I can't do this, I can't do that, who am I to buy an apartment block? And the answer is you are that guy who's going to go and buy that apartment block. There's a book that you might want to check out if you'd like the advice. It's called Good to Great. That
Good to
book,
great.
yeah, it kind of helps you go from systems, growing your systems and understanding the key players and things like that to expand the business, with a great foundation. Because sometimes people overgrow and they grow too fast and they kind of fall apart. So Good to Great's a very, that book helped me a lot, to really just get that mindset of, we can't do this all alone. We got to find key people. We got to, trust these key people. And, especially if you're going to be investing out east, you're definitely going to need to leverage key people out there to really scale that out. So, um, what would you say? And Robert Kiyosaki talks about this as the unfair advantage. What would you say comes easy to you that other people might find difficult?
Reading documents, especially, and I had a huge advantage in regards to probate, that it was either anywhere from 1,800 to 3,000 to hire a lawyer to go through the process for a gold stamp from the courts.
Uh-huh.
And I was almost committed to that. And one night after hockey, I mentioned to a friend that I had to go see a lawyer tomorrow and file probate. He says, "You don't need a lawyer." And he showed me the documents that he'd filled with a similar situation. Now, of course, I'm not a lawyer. Everybody's situation is different. But
Mm-hmm.
in respect to his, dearly beloved that passed, it was similar to my situation. One, two siblings. And so the problem with the forms was I didn't know it said city of. I have to write city of, and a lawyer does. And then on the next form, it might be regional municipality. But usually forms have that pre-filled, not probate forms from the courts. At any rate, deducing that and transposing to mine, I think I was off by $15 at the wicket that I had miscalculated on the probate tax. And there was one form where I neglected to include my father, who was predeceased. I simply had to put his name and put predeceased and return it the next day they started the file. I think it
Mm-hmm.
was 6 weeks later. I had documents in hand to close the estate and take care of what we needed to do.
Yeah, because a lot of people just immediately think that they need a lawyer to handle um that sort of transaction, but it's interesting. So the the secret sauce, I would say, is going to help you when you come into apartment blocks, because those contracts, JV contracts and things like that, a lot of people feel like they need people to review them and really dig into them. But if you're a type of guy who's fairly certain, you might end up being the guy who's writing them up and bringing them to the table. So you never know. I mean, that's definitely an advantage in the real estate business. You know, there's a lot of documents to read: mortgage documents, loan documents, joint venture partner documents. So when you're looking for deals, are you find the deal first and go and get the bank to finance it or find the money, or do you like to have the money ready to go and then go looking for a deal?
Well, in all these cases so far, it's been found a deal and not so much struggled, but worked harder to find financing in the tail end, which of course the reverse is much easier if the money is there beforehand, or you're pre-approved, if you will. Um, it certainly makes it a lot easier to know if you had a partner or such on side that it's
Mm-hmm.
there, it's waiting. I just have to find the deal, and then the struggle becomes finding the deal, which can also be a challenge at times because if it's on MLS, I've heard the deal's gone already. Although it depends
Yeah,
what your
there's
strategy.
deals, like I'd challenge that, in that a lot of people they look at MLS and they think that the price is the price. They're like, oh, they want, 335 or 550, and I can't, it doesn't make sense. Well, why don't you call them up? I would always say to my students, I say, call them up, find out what the story is. The biggest line that I ever use: and what's the story with this house? Instead of asking about the house, ask the story of the house. You'll find the motivation when you call the listing agent. You'll find, is there any movement in this thing? Can they, even on the phone? And that's really what I would say is, like, before you go, making offers with your agent, I would always recommend that you call the listing agent, because they know the score. They know exactly what the bottom line is. They know exactly what the situation is. And if you can, build a little bit of rapport and find out what the story is, and, make an offer, you can find out, where you're at fairly quickly. And I've been surprised time and time again that the list price is not the real price. And they'd like that number, but everything is negotiable. So yeah, MLS is tough. You've had a lot of success off market with different situations that have popped up, but there's definitely stuff on market. Uh, and even if it's not that deal, that property, I'd always suggest that people say, hey, do you got anything else interesting coming up? And that opens the door to, like, whatever the agent thinks is interesting. They're going to go ahead and, tell you about whatever else they got. If they have something, and you might be able to beat the market to something that maybe isn't even listed yet. So I'm a big believer in working the network, and people give deals to people they like, and just be likable, and I think you'll find what you're looking for. So you prefer to have the financing set up then already ready to go before you go
I
to get the
would.
deal.
I don't think I've achieved it yet in any of my deals, unfortunately, but hopefully the next one I'll definitely. I'm thinking about some family members that can possibly help out with my next
Hmm.
possession acquisition.
Yeah, yeah. So when when you're looking to the East Coast, you must have done some research so far. It sounds like you've done some. Why not, West Coast, or what really is singing that song for you on the East Side?
It's the prices, although I guess the appreciation could be more on the West Coast than I would find on the East Coast.
Hmm.
Really, it's just from the couple properties I've examined, it's the price point versus the potential income. I think
Yeah.
student rentals would be a good way to go in respect to the up to 6 rooms if you can get them for 800-900 a month out there
Hmm.
from the reports
Hmm.
that I've heard. So, and that's fair, like for the region. So it's finding the right area. Again, Moncton is one that was mentioned.
Hmm.
Um, so I haven't looked too in depth on it, as I say, that motivation factor, and hopefully this kicks me into gear and
Well,
take
there's
some
that
action.
there's that quote that really keeps me going is discipline begins when motivation ends. So when we have these pursuits we're on, like getting in shape. We can be motivated for like 5 or 7 days, or maybe a week, or maybe a month, but there will be a time in an exercise routine where you're like, I am not motivated today. And then that's where that discipline, and I really like, because we don't really have to be disciplined when we're motivated because we're doing it. But then that
Right.
one day where you're like, oh, the gym, cardio for an hour at 7 o'clock in the morning doesn't sound like a lot of fun, but you say, you know what, I made a commitment to doing this, and the discipline kicks in, and that's where you can really, because that's where most people fall off. They fail because they stop when the motivation ends, and we're never going to be motivated to the degree that we need to do. In a lot of cases, at least me personally, when I'm motivated on something, it's like, yeah, I'm going, I'm boom, 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 and then when it starts to wane, I'm like, okay, I said I wanted this. I'm going to keep doing this. I'm going to keep plugging away at it. And I think what you really nailed it earlier when you said goal setting and having a vision, and really setting that up. So have you spent some time recently setting up those goals and looking at, say, I would always say to my students, look at 6 months, look at 12 months, look at 18 months. Beyond that, in acquisitions, it's kind of like, I don't know what, like 24 months. Okay, now we're into 2 years, but 18 months is usually a pretty good horizon to be focused on. So if you could, um, what would the next 24, what would the next year or two look like if you could, ideally?
I'd like to. I challenge myself to to get at least two more in 24.
Hmm. I
I know
like
that's a
that. Two
little
more in
small
24. It sounds like a
scale.
campaign, like a political campaign.
A survive to 25 is the going one we're running
Oh,
off.
there you go. Survive. Oh, yeah, I have actually heard that. And I hadn't heard that. I hadn't heard that, you know, up until recently. Only in the last like 2 months have I been hearing this survive to 25.
It's
Two
those
more in
interest rates.
24. I like two more in 24 better than survive to 25, because we're
That
all
is
gonna
a more
be here.
positive tone for sure. Yeah.
25. How about 25 and 25? I like that.
See, I'd actually, I'd love to go back to my previous employer with a REIT one day. Nothing
Oh,
would
and
make
be
me
like, hey,
happy.
you remember me? It's kind of like
Yeah.
the revenge body, where people break
Yeah.
up and then they get work out and they're like, remember me? So it's like, yeah, go back and raise some capital from the people that maybe let you go. So right now, what I like about it, we talked a little bit about the show that you're gainfully unemployed now, and I think that's a great position to be in. Sometimes the golden handcuffs will prevent you from actually making the moves you need to move. So I'm a big believer that you've got massive runway now to actually, take advantage of the time and the space and the opportunity that's happening on the East Coast. So I think you should um, definitely dive in on that. So if people want to invest with you, they want to reach out to you, they want to connect with you, and maybe there's some people on the East Coast out there that have some opportunities for you. How do they connect with you? How do they find you? What should they do?
My website's not in gear yet, but I do have an active email for it. It would be Alex at sherexproperties.ca. So
You want
that's
to spell it? Yeah,
SHEREX properties.ca.
cool. All right. Well, yeah, I really appreciate your perspective, and for all the Ontario people, you're joining the herd of people going, you know what, these prices are too high. I'm going to find something on the East Coast, and don't let the market you're in determine your success. There's lots of houses all over the world. So I really
I'd
appreciate your time,
still,
Alex.
oh, thank you. I'd still accept a local deal if I found one. So I'm always
Yeah,
looking.
yeah. Well, I say this to guys. I say if you're a professional surfer, you don't sit around on the beach waiting for waves. You go to where the waves are. And if the waves are crashing by your house, cool. But if you want to be a professional surfer, you get in the car and you drive down to the next beach and you go surfing there. So like the East Coast is calling you, Alex. Let's do it.
Gotta get my
Awesome.
wetsuit.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay, well, I really appreciate the time. And until next time, guys, we'll catch you on the next episode.
Thank you so much. Take care.
Hey there, I really hope you enjoyed that episode. And as always, if you want to listen to more daily interview content, make sure you subscribe. And if you're an active real estate investor and you're doing deals and you'd like to get featured on this show, then just head over to daveinterviewyou.com. Now at moneypartnerformula.com, we help real estate investors to create a process for predictably getting capital so they can do more deals without relying on hard money lenders or the banks. We do this by building them a private capital marketing system. Now, if you want help turning yourself into a big money capital attraction machine, then book a call with our team to see how we can help. Just visit moneypartnerformula.com to find out more. All right, take care, and we'll see you on the next interview.